stream and you're live, so on and so forth. So definitely check based on the service you're using. And again, when you go and actually start a stream, they usually give you instructions. Here's a quick pro tip. I recommend you go back in the settings, go to general, and click on show confirmation dialog when starting streams. Because what this will do is make it so you don't accidentally start streaming, which I may or may not have done before. If you have this enabled, it'll actually ask if you really do want to start streaming, which, trust me, you want that enabled. If you have any questions about OBS, be sure to leave them in the comment section down below and I'll do my best to respond. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content. With that said, thanks for watching and we'll catch you in the next one.
Doing something fun today. This is a video that's been on my request list for probably the longest. But there's just been so much exciting stuff happening lately with the new Stream Beats drop and, you know, Mixer getting shut down. All those things that I haven't quite found the time to do this one. OBS, the streaming software that nearly every streamer uses. Some of you guys use it really well. Some of you guys not so much. And then some of you are just opening it up for the first time and are completely overwhelmed and have no idea what anything means. There are so many cool things in OBS that no matter which of those people you identify with in your skill set of OBS, there's always something new to learn. So let's go through the software. Let's just build a stream together. I'll show you the bare bone basics, like setting up multiple scenes, knowing which settings are important within the vast array of options in the settings tab that you've probably seen before. And I'll show you some of my favorite, more advanced tips and tricks that are actually really easy to do if you just know what to click on. Things like custom widgets and hotkeys to switch scenes automatically. Sounds good? Go. By the way, huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Owns.tv. They are your one-stop shop for all your stream aesthetic needs, whether it's overlays or alerts or panels or whatever. And one of my favorite things about it is that their overlays are modular. So for example, if you and all your friends want a similar overlay and you pick up this minimalist series overlay you're looking at right now, each of you can pick and choose different pieces of the overlay to use. So even though you'll all be using the exact same theme, none of you will have the exact same overlay. If you'd like to make the smart move like many from the community have done, feel free to use the link in the description down below. That link also supports the channel when you use it. And then on top of that, if you want 40% off, use code ALPHA at checkout. So the goal of this video is within the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, set up a live stream that looks comparable to the one that I use when I go live on Twitch, which by the way, I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. Link to that in the description down below. Come hang out. Sound like a plan? Awesome. So with OBS launched and completely bare bones, this is what it looks like. You know, it's weird. You got a bunch of weird boxes. You've got some stuff here with milliseconds, and you got a bunch of little buttons here. In the beginning, all we're going to look at is this area, which is our preview. It shows us what our stream looks like, and these two areas right here. These are all your different scenes, so you can have a gameplay scene here that has your gameplay and your camera over in the corner, and then you can have an intermission scene here, which would be obviously between games, and you can blow your camera up larger and interact with your chat a little bit more. And as you switch between them, the different sources are all the elements inside that scene. So essentially, these are folders with all the different things on it. Let's start by making our gameplay scene. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this scene Gameplay, so I know which one it is. So we got our scene. Let's add in a source. First thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our display. So right off the bat, I know this is a little bit Inception-y because we're looking at our display, which also shows our display, which you get the point. And here we can see our entire screen and what it's capturing. So we're going to hit OK, and you can see anything I might bring up, whether it's my Stream Deck software or whatever. It's going to show up right here. Anyone that's watching my stream can see my screen. Now there are a couple different ways of capturing your screen. One more that you should be aware of. Another one, instead of using display capture, would be game capture. You can see if I add this in, if you have a game open, you'll be able to choose that specific game, or you can say choose any full screen application, which is usually you play your games in full screen. it'll grab whatever game is running, but it won't grab anything else. So this way, if you alt-tab out of your game or minimize it to open up something in YouTube, your audience isn't going to be able to see it because it's only capturing your game.
It's one device. It's not going to include all of the things that we look at. I think you know the things that we look at. We talk about them all the time. So we're not actually looking actively at significantly broadening those indicators in the SEP right now.
Thank you. Chris Rugaber, Associated Press.
Thank you. Chair Powell, I wanted to ask about the forecast overall. You're forecasting a very low unemployment rate next year, and in 2023, you have inflation, or the Fed overall is in the SEP forecasting inflation at or above 2% by 2023. Yet no rate hike in any of this forecast horizon. So is this telling us that to see a higher inflation rate than what's projected, or do you not, as you've been talking about, is the unemployment rate insufficient, or what is this telling us about the Fed's reaction function, that it seems you're meeting the Fed's dual mandate by 2023, yet again, no rate hike expected?
So I guess the first thing to say is that the SEP is not a committee forecast. It's not something we sit around and debate and discuss and approve and say this represents our,
It's what they each say, not collectively.
Function as a committee. It's a compilation of projections from different people, and since we don't debate it or discuss it, it would be hard for me to say exactly why each participant did what they were going to do. So all I would say about this is that we've laid out what I think is very clear guidance on liftoff. And it's really three things: labor market conditions that are consistent with our estimates of maximum employment. And as I mentioned, we consider a wide range of indicators in assessing labor market conditions, not just the unemployment rate. Inflation that has reached 2% and not just on a transitory basis, and inflation that's on track to run moderately above 2% for some time. The first two of those three are very much data-based. The third does have a little bit of an element of expectations in it. So we are very much determined to implement this guidance in a robust way. It is the guidance that we chose carefully to implement our new framework. And to meet these standards, we'll need to see data, as I mentioned. So what does this SEP really say? It says that we're committed to our framework and to the guidance we've provided to implement that framework. We will wait until the requirements set forth in that guidance are clearly met before considering a change in our policy rate. And the last thing I'll say is this. The state of the economy in 2 or 3 years is highly uncertain, and I wouldn't want to focus too much on the exact timing of a potential rate increase that far into the future. So that's how I would think about the SEP.
Thank you. Paul Kiernan.
Thank you, Chairman Powell. My question is twofold. One, how high are you comfortable letting inflation rise? There is some ambiguity in your new target, as you mentioned, expectations driven. And do you think that ambiguity might cause markets to price in a lower tolerance for inflation than the Fed actually has, thereby causing financial conditions to tighten prematurely? Is that a concern? Thanks.
So we've said we'd like to see inflation run moderately above 2% for some time. And we've resisted, basically, generally, the temptation to try to quantify that. Part of that just is talking about inflation is one thing. Actually having inflation run above 2% is the real thing. So over the years we've talked about 2% inflation as a goal, but we haven't achieved it. So I would say we'd like to, perform. That's what we'd really like to do, is to get inflation moderately above 2%. I don't want to be too specific about what that means because I think it's hard to do that. And we haven't done it yet. When we're actually above 2%, we can do that. I would say this. fundamental change in our framework is that we're not going to act preemptively based on forecasts for the most part. And we're going to wait to see actual data. And I think it will take people time to adjust to that and to adjust to that new practice. And the only way we can really build the credibility of that is by doing it. So that's how I would think about that.
What?
Thank you. Matthew Bosler.
Hi, Chair Powell. This is Matthew Bosa with Bloomberg News. So there's a widespread presumption at this point that the U.S. will reach herd immunity sometime this year. And all along you've said that the path of the economy is going to be determined by the course of the virus. I'm curious, based on the projections that you released today that show unemployment will still be above estimates of maximum employment through the end of next year and perhaps sometime into 2023, do you think policymakers need to be doing more here to sort of align the herd immunity and full employment timelines, if you will? Thank you.
So on herd immunity, I'm really going to leave that question to the experts. We don't control that. We're not responsible for defining it. We'll leave that whole discussion to the experts. I mean, what we're focused on is the part that we control, which is the support that we provide to the economy. And there we provided very clear guidance. And in the case of asset purchases, it's at their current level until we make substantial further progress. There is an element of judgment in that, and we'll supply clear communication well in advance of actually tapering. And we just went through the criteria for raising interest rates. They're very specific, and we're very much committed to having them fulfilled robustly. I would agree with you that the path of the virus continues to be very important. We have these new strains with it, which can be quite virulent, and we're not actually done yet. And we're clearly on a good path with cases coming down, as I mentioned, but we're not done. And I'd hate to see us take our eye off the ball before we actually finish the job. So that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, some of the questions are silly. A quick note while I ask the next question. Asset purchases until we make substantial further progress and we will substantially communicate that in advance. That's a big statement, right? And this is something he's reiterated in the past, but he's telling us we're not just going to one day, know this if you're trading. He's literally telling you, we're not just going to one day come out and go, that's it, rates are going up and bonds are being tapered. He says we are going to communicate that to you substantially well in advance of it happening. He's being crystal clear. Nobody believes this.
Spaces that involve close contact with others. Some people will do that right away. Others will hold back. And so I think there'll be some of that. In addition, though, remember there are 10 million people in the range of 10 million people who need to get back to work, and it's going to take some time for that to happen. It can happen maybe more quickly than it has in the past because it involves the reopening of a sector of the economy as opposed to stimulating aggregate demand and waiting for that to produce job demand for workers. This could be a different sort of a process, and it could be quicker. We don't know that. But it's just a lot of people who need to get back to work, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time, no matter how well the economy performs. Unemployment will take quite a time to go down, and so will participation. So that's all I can say. I think the faster the better. We'd love to see it come sooner rather than later. We'd welcome nothing more than that. But realistically, given the numbers, it's going to take some time.
Thank you. Steve Wiesman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I wonder if you could, kind of a three-parter here, but all related. Would you comment on the current level of the 10-year yields and other long rates out there, whether or not you think they would have a negative effect on the economy? And if not, is there a level that would give you concern? And finally, the third part, other central bankers have expressed concern about what's happened to yields in their countries, and even some taking action, but not you. Could you give us your general idea or orientation towards the idea of coming into the market and affecting a particular tenor of the bond market? Do you like that idea? Do you not like it? Is it at the top of your